everyone, and welcome to today's Petite Knit themed video. You will notice a different backdrop behind me, and these are just some of the beautiful Petite Knit pieces that I have knit over the last several years. I started knitting very seriously probably in 2020, and in the 5 years since then I have made loads of Petite Knit's designs. She has to be one of the most popular knitwear designers of our time. She's absolutely prolific. And I personally really gravitate towards her design aesthetic because I enjoy how she creates very clean and modern versions of timeless shapes and silhouettes. Behind me I have, I think, 8 or 9 pieces. I also have a few smaller accessories, and I will give an honourable mention to some patterns that I've made that I no longer have on me because I didn't keep them or because I gave them away as gifts. I'm really hoping that this video will be a cool kind of deep dive into what I like and dislike about Petite Knit's patterns, as well as allowing me to really reflect on how my knitting has improved over the last 5 years. 5 years feels like a really long time that I've been doing this, and I've been part of the knitting community, and genuinely finding knitting has been such a huge milestone in my life. Everything changed from that point onwards, and Petite Knit was a huge part of that journey, so I thought, since I've made over 10 of her patterns now, why not do a roundup and give you a look at everything that I've created. I'll be sharing these garments with you in chronological order in which I made them, so starting all the way back in 2020 with my Cumulus Blouse, all the way up to my most recent finished piece by Petite Knit, which is the Louvre Sweater. At the end, I will also try and pick out a few favourites and maybe kind of do a little ranking, so do stick around if you want to see what my absolute top Petite Knit patterns are. Before we get into trying on all of my Petite Knit pieces, I wanted to share a few words from today's sponsor, which is FOREO Sweden. As I'm getting married in October of this year, I've been looking to add new little things into my skincare routine to really make sure that I'm glowing when I walk down the aisle. I was thrilled when FOREO reached out to me to test out their new FAQ 202 LED light mask. I had heard loads and loads of great things about LED light therapy, but the FAQ 202 struck me as particularly nifty because it features 8 wavelengths of light, including near-infrared, all aimed at tackling different skin concerns. When I take off all my makeup at the end of a long day, I like to settle in and browse through their menu of treatments, which tackle anything from skin texture, redness to enlarged pores or fine lines. I also find using the device to be a really easy and relaxing experience. Because the mask is made of a lightweight flexible silicone, it really kind of moulds to the contours of my face, and there is a cool little strap at the back to adjust it for the fit. It feels quite space age and futuristic when all of the lights turn on, but I'm happy to report that because it is completely wireless, I can get in a few rounds of knitting or kind of tidy up a few bits around the house while I'm wearing it. My favourite treatments also only take about 15 minutes, so they're easy to squeeze in as part of my nightly routine. The folks over at FOREO have kindly given us the code IC30 to get 30% off their products site-wide. This also stacks with ongoing promotions, which is particularly great at the moment because they let me know they're going to be doing a super deal. So if you are looking to invest in your skin, this is the perfect time. Thank you so much to FOREO for sponsoring this video. The first garment I'm going to pick out from here is the first Petite Knit design I ever made. This is the Cumulus Blouse. I think that this is still one of her most popular pieces. It has a very simple raglan construction that you can see here. I knit this up in a combination of Drops Kid Silk and one of their discontinued yarns. I believe it was called Alpaca Silk. So that was a lace weight yarn with a kid silk held with it. And honestly, I get so many compliments on this blouse when people see it online. And even though this was my first kind of introduction into the world of Petite Knit, I think that this still holds up as maybe one of my favourite patterns by her in terms of its just simplicity, style, and yeah, just pretty details that are well put together. I'm going to put it on to give you a proper look of how it hangs on my body. I actually don't tend to grab for this jumper as often as some of my other Petite Knit pieces. I think that might be because I kind of messed up the sizing with this one. You can see that the fit of this, I knit it in a small, but it's quite snug. I later found out that I am really much more of a Petite Knit medium, but I made this so that it would fit perfectly at my bust, and I definitely think that it does that. I also don't tend to wear this all the time because I feel like the colour is quite pale. It features several of the elements that I really enjoy about the construction of her other jumpers, most particularly the raglan that you can see here that looks super, super neat. You can also see at the bottom, if you look really, really closely, that I added some increases to accommodate for my hips. It almost has kind of an hourglass shape to the jumper, which it is pretty and I do love it. But I feel like this one really warrants remaking, probably in a darker colour. Then I think I would just get so much wear out of it because the I-cord detail for the neckline is just so crisp and perfect. I love how sheer it is. It feels like a little bit sexy and dressed up. And yeah, just a really, really beautiful pattern. This next piece that I am just putting on is a cardigan rather than a sweater, and this was the second piece that I ever made. This is the Novice Cardigan, I believe it's Mohair edition on Ravelry. So it is designed to be knit in 2 strands of mohair yarn. I, however, decided not to do that, and I went for this really lovely and soft I think it's called Alpaca Classic from Rowan. I bought a jumper quantity of this yarn and didn't really know what to do with it. So when I found this pattern and I thought I wanted to cast it on, I just decided to try it for this. And I do like the colour, but I don't really tend to wear this out of the house because I think it is quite oversized and baggy on me. I also feel like the alpaca yarn was maybe not the right choice for this. Holding 2 strands of mohair on silk is definitely the way to go with the Novice Cardigan. I feel like that would just give it a lot more structure. At the moment as it is, it's just a little bit too loose and slouchy. If I untuck it, it's also quite long. However, I didn't make the mistake on this one of going for a small. I knit this in an M, so you can see that the fit at the bottom is looking quite a bit better. If you look quite closely, you can actually see where it looked a little bit thinner on the top. That's because you work evenly spaced increases going round to create this kind of yoke that expands and gets a little bit bigger. I feel like when you're creating these evenly spaced increases, you do tend to get sort of a sheer section and a slightly unusual difference in texture from the top increases to the bottom increases. I also kind of think that over the years, Petite Knit has actually really improved the finish of quite a lot of her things. If you look at the button band here, this is the sort of most basic kind of beginner button band, and it just doesn't have that super crisp look of some of her newer pieces that are maybe double knit button bands. This does tend to pull out a bit at the top. So yeah, considering the issues with this sweet little cardigan, I do tend to reserve it just for sort of slouching around at home. On to my third garment. This might be one that you will be more familiar with if you follow me over on Instagram. And this, like the previous one, is also a novice piece from Petite Knit. This, I think, is called the Novice Sweater Mohair edition. And unlike the Novice Cardigan, I did actually knit this in the recommended 2 strands of mohair, which is probably why it turned out significantly more successful than the Novice Cardigan. But yeah, this actually is a piece that I do wear quite often. I knit this up, I think it was again in a size small, and I worked more increases for here because it fits me around the top super, super well. The reason why I really wanted to make this is because I thought that the sort of 3/4 length sleeves was such a sweet touch. The yarn that I used for this was the Drops Kid Silk. I held 2 strands together, and I believe this shade is called Mauve. It's a super beautiful colour, and I think that it complements me really quite well. Even though I now kind of tend to go for slightly more neutral shades, I think that this sort of berry tone is really quite lovely, and I do like wearing this just with a pair of black trousers. As it shares the name with the Novice Cardigan, the Novice Sweater is knit similarly, so you are creating those evenly spaced increases sort of going round and round to create a yoke that just expands out over the shoulders before you separate and you create the body. I remember breezing through the knitting of this pattern. I believe the whole thing only took me sort of 3 or 4 days. It was such a quick and satisfying knit. As soon as this beautiful berry shade of yarn arrived, I was like, oh my goodness, I have to get this on my needles. And yeah, it was that moment where I realised, okay, I really am quite obsessed with knitting, actually. There was no looking back from this point. Considering that this is Drops Kid Silk, it's not the most expensive kind of mohair yarn on the market, I don't find that this jumper pills particularly much, although I do maintenance sort of like on the side with my D-pillar every year when I bring it out just to freshen it up. You only have to do one type of increase and you're just knitting around and round and round and round. There's no kind of like fiddly picking up of stitches. You start at the collar, you make your rib, and then you just continue with increases down to the bottom. Really highly recommend as a beginner project. The Novice Sweater is the perfect name for it. It is a sort of flawless first knit. In fact, this would have been a much better first knit for me than the Cumulus Blouse was, because I distinctly remember doing the I-cord sort of finishing on that and thinking it was an absolute nightmare. Like, how do people actually make this? I'm going to keep on my Novice Sweater while I talk you through the next pattern that I made from Petite Knit. I have 2 examples of it here, and this is the Oslo Hat. This is a very popular and sort of well-regarded hat on Ravelry. If I'm looking here, she has 21,000 projects listed on Ravelry for the Oslo Hat. Wow, I mean, 21,000 people have made this hat. Or maybe less, because you might be like me and have made multiple versions of it, because it is a really solid beanie pattern. The Oslo Hat is created by making a double thick kind of brim. Here you can see that it is actually sewn into place and folded over, and it's then folded again on itself to create a really thick and cozy brim. When you put it on, that just gives it a really lush and sort of squishy effect around your head that I really appreciate. This is my mum's one that I really need to give back to her, actually. I've held on to it for quite a few weeks since she lent it to me when it was really cold one day when I was visiting them. But yeah, this was knit up, I believe, in Drops Flora and Kid Silk. I also have my other one that I'm going to show you. And this is my Oslo hat, which is a kind of mixed multicolour pinky one. It actually goes quite well with this jumper, doesn't it? Maybe I need to wear it with this. But this is in Manos del Uruguay's wildflower colourway of their Cabrito yarn. A really lovely yarn that I talked about in my Mohair review video that I'll actually link below for you if you're interested in. This is very cute, and looking at it in the viewfinder here, it's making me want to make one maybe like in black. It gets a lot of compliments and it does not look handmade in the slightest. The pattern instructions for this are also quite straightforward. The only bit that I did struggle with a tiny bit was the fact that you have to basically turn it inside out to get the brim to lie in the correct place. But other than that, super recommend the Oslo Hat. A great little pattern. This is the Friday tee. I knit this up in 2 different shades of Drops Flora. It's ever so slightly crinkled here at the bottom because, yeah, it was shoved in the back of my cupboard and I literally just remembered to grab it and pull it out. I was going to bring this out this week because it is something that I really love to wear in the spring. It's a bit too hot to wear in the summer, so there is that sweet spot of like a month or so where this is the perfect kind of light jumper option for the weather. Although this looks like quite a simple sort of t-shirt construction, it was actually deceptively sort of not difficult, but trying to make. The drops flora that I used for this is a fingering weight yarn, and I believe most of it was knit up on 3mm needles, so we are talking like quite a tiny sort of gauge. This has a double knit collar which is folded in on itself, but has actually kept its shape really well despite me not putting any elastic in it at all. It also features some very nifty little raglan increases that kind of form part of the pattern. It's very subtle, but I think it's just really clever how she managed to keep the lines for the stripes while also creating these beautiful sort of raglan increases. Again, I think the fit is actually okay on me. A bit crinkled and sort of like a bit bunching here, but that's also because it needs a good press. But yeah, overall, a really great little t-shirt pattern. She has versions of this that are more plain, that don't feature the sort of ribbed, I think it's broken rib. But yeah, it's a bit like waffle stitch, kind of broken rib that makes it very elastic. So if I pull it from the side, you can see there really is a lot of stretch in that, and that is due to the stitch that she's actually used to make this. It also means that it fits absolutely perfectly on your arms. So yeah, the Friday tee, a difficult sort of slog of a project, but still something that has given me a garment that I wear and wear every single spring. Now the next two designs on my list are accessory patterns, one of which is wildly popular and the other of which I believe is extremely underrated. Now the first one I'm going to show you, I mean you're going to know what this is immediately, right? Because everyone and their mum who knows how to knit has made one of these. This is of course the infamous Sophie Scarf. The simplicity of this scarf is absolutely baffling considering how many people have made this. Now, looking at her Ravelry page here, there are 28,000 Sophie scarves currently listed on Ravelry. It is a very simple construction, the perfect sort of beginner project really, because the main kind of body of the scarf is a garter stitch texture, which I have never been a huge fan of garter stitch, but I don't mind the way that it looks on this. I am not entirely sure how I feel about this Sophie scarf, and I will say this sort of pattern number is twinned by the Sophie shawl, I believe it's called, which is the larger version. I own both patterns, and I would say I really love the Sophie shawl. If you're looking for a big kind of squishy shawl to make, that one is very satisfying. I made it for my mum in white, quite fluffy alpaca yarn, and it turned out really lovely. The Sophie scarf, however, I think it is a touch overrated. I mean, it's difficult. The pattern is listed for £4 on Ravelry. Most of Petite Knit patterns are around that price range. However, think about the fact that there have been so many thousands of people to make this, and it was selling for £4 each time, and it is the most simple, basic scarf construction. That really is like a sort of businesswoman genius move from Petite Knit. I will show you it on so that you can see what it looks like. Now I made this in scrap yarn from another project, and I think that it really works for that as a good little stash buster. This is, I think, Rowan Tweed. Maybe it has tweed, DK Tweed, I don't know. It has another name, but the really popular Rowan Tweed. It is a lovely little scarf, I will give it that, but do I think that it deserves the insane hype that has sort of been around it for years? Not really. It is so basic. Great for beginners, really great. Like, if somebody needs a recommendation for getting into knitting, this is a great option, but just so insanely overhyped. So I would say check out the shawl. The shawl is really, really beautiful and it's kind of the same construction. And just buy one of the patterns, don't make my mistake. It's only a gauge difference, you really don't need to buy both. The pattern is basically identical. Going from something that I think is quite overrated, at a similar time I made this gorgeous little teddy clutch. This only has 200 projects on Ravelry for comparison, but it is so cute. Yes, you have to buy the inside kind of like bracket that makes it into a clutch bag, and of course you can add your own kind of strap, but this is such a sweet and satisfying little project. I created mine in We Are Knitter's Cloud Boucle yarn, or Boucle Cloud, I always get that one mixed up, but that is such a gorgeous sort of fuzzy textured yarn. Really, really lovely for this. If I were to remake it, the only thing I would probably change is I maybe wouldn't make it in white. Because I made this in white, it doesn't get the wear that it deserves, because it is genuinely, like, it looks like something you would buy at a shop. It's so sweet, and I am very tempted because I do have more straps to make another one very soon. Maybe in black or beige. I think that would really work. But yeah, if you're looking to make a sweet little accessory, check this out. It's really cute. The teddy clutch also comes in 2 sizes. So I think I made the small one, and it does also come in like a significantly bigger one that you sort of hold under your arm, like that. But yeah, I thought that the small one would be better because I can sling it over my shoulder, just put my phone and maybe like my purse and some lip gloss or something in it. Just very sweet, a really lovely little pattern. If you are a newer viewer to my channel, we now might be moving into territory that you are more familiar with, and this is the No Frills Sweater. This is one of Petite Knit's earlier sweater patterns, so it still has some of the construction elements that I kind of view as early Petite Knit. So the collar is the first thing to be knit, and it isn't a fancy sort of double knit collar or anything like that. And despite this being one of her earlier and more simple patterns, I still really love this as a garment, and I really enjoyed knitting it up. It does feature my favourite, the raglan construction for the sleeves. I just think that gives you a really great fit at the top. I made mine in alpaca tweed from Lanar, held together with knitting for Olive soft silk mohair, and it's so snuggly and warm. It doesn't feel itchy on my skin, which is fabulous. My one gripe with this pattern is that because it is one of her older designs, it doesn't come in as many sizes as her newer pieces do, so that's a little bit of a shame. However, it is a very good kind of basic jumper, a really nice option for when you don't want to have to think, you want to knit something really simple, something that also feels like a classic kind of store-bought silhouette. I made the ribbing on mine a touch tighter, so it does kind of have that bunching effect, because I felt like if it was going to hit me here, I kind of wanted it to be more loose and sort of, yeah, just poofed out, I guess. But yeah, navy yarn as well, one of my favourite colours. I do also enjoy how the sleeves kind of bunch out a tiny bit here. I like the balance of that with having it go in a little bit at the body. That was a modification that I was really happy to do. I may make another one of these in the future if I just want a really kind of classic jumper with a slight kind of boat neck feel to the rib here at the top. Again, I feel like this is one of the things that indicates it's one of her early patterns, because now her necklines are really quite perfect. I don't think that this kind of shape was necessarily intentional with the design of this. However, I actually feel it makes it look a little bit more unique and a bit more interesting. So yeah, really love this No Frills. It gets a lot of wear. I'm obsessed with the colour navy, so this one is one of the ones that I reach for the most. For this next one, I have had to put on a black t-shirt underneath so I can show you what it looks like. But this is the Lulu Slipover. I'll just pop it on and then I'll give you a closer look. I particularly like wearing this slipover just with a white button down, but I do think that it works really quite well with a black t-shirt on underneath. And there are elements of the construction of this that I just absolutely adore and will be looking for again and again when I am deciding what to make next. The Lulu Slipover is created from the top down, as are basically all Petite Knit patterns, so if you are afraid of going from the bottom up, this is not something you have to worry about with most of her designs. You start and you do some subtle shaping at the back, and then you create the front panel. You also knit a gorgeous, very kind of thick and neat rib that goes all the way around from the top of your shoulder to the bottom and links up to a double knit button band, which is really, really squishy. It's details like this that I really enjoy to see in patterns that are released now, because they indicate that someone has had enough experience experimenting with techniques to really create garments that are crisp and finished. I would now probably not want to make a normal button band that isn't double knit, just because of my experiences of them stretching out and becoming kind of a bit deformed. So yeah, the button bands on this are really, really great, and I don't think that they're going to warp out shape. I really love the slouchy kind of oversized armholes. I think that they add something that just looks a little bit more interesting and shows off a bit more of the garment that is underneath the slipover. As I knit mine in a slightly thicker yarn, my gauge did differ quite a bit from hers, and you'll see that at the sides my button bands are not as long. Her armholes seem to be a little bit shorter and her button band seems to be a bit longer, which does create a more noticeable split for the hips. This is an element that I really like about this because it means that you don't have to worry about knitting to fit your bust and it not actually fitting on your hips, which is definitely the case with some of the other pieces that I made, especially at the beginning of my knitting journey. This is the Lulu Slipover. I did the original version. This is not the chunky version, which is why I had a few gauge issues. But I really enjoyed making this and I think that it just looks very, very cool. This is another one that I could see myself making in more colours. I also think that it would actually work quite well as a gift because as long as you have a rough estimate of the sizing, it is quite forgiving because of the slits at the side. So yeah, some design elements that I really love. Alright, up next we have another real kind of iconic Petite Knit piece. This is her Moby Sweater. This was such a huge moment in my kind of knitting journey and my channel and my Instagram, because this brought so many new people to me on the internet. So I have a lot of fond memories attached to this jumper. It is a very classic cabled jumper with that sort of crisscross design down the front, these beautiful luscious cables, and all of this sort of cabling situation is matched on the sleeves. And yeah, this is just such a iconic, squishy, gorgeous, luscious cabled jumper. This gets me so many compliments because it really does look so much more complex than it actually is. I'm not saying it's a complete walk in the park. You do have to learn to do the cabling. I mean, what else can I say? You have to learn to do the cabling. But once you have your head kind of around that, it isn't as difficult as it looks, and it does just create a piece that you'll just wear forever. Although I really love how classy and classic this jumper is as like a really thick kind of squishy cabled piece, this is actually one of the jumpers that I find a little bit more difficult to wear and style day to day. And I will say that's something to keep in mind when thinking about making a piece like this. This was a real process knit for me because I wanted to make one of those iconic kind of cabled pieces. I knew it was going to be a lot of work, and it did take me several months. And I do wear it a lot when it gets really, really cold, because I knit it in drops lima held together with drops alpaca silk, which is what gives it this mild, kind of beautiful colour. And I wear it when it's really freezing out, just with a pair of jeans, and I'm like happy I'm good to go. But it isn't the easiest piece to mix and match with some of the other items in my wardrobe that I commonly wear. So yeah, I really, really love it. I highly recommend it. I think that it's a really good introduction into cabling. Her patterns are so simple and straightforward that you would find it easy, even if you've never done cabling before, to pick it up making this. And because I enjoyed the process of making this so much, that's actually what inspired me to cast on the Dagmar sweater, which I'm creating right now. Really excited to show you my progress on that one, because I think that the fit of that one is going to be even better than this. But yeah, an ambitious project, but definitely one of the cooler, really textured patterns that Petite Knit has put out. She is putting out more kind of patterned and like slightly ornate looking jumpers at the moment, and I feel like so many people have tried some of them out. There are so many options to choose from. I also really love the Ingrid that looks absolutely fabulous on a lot of people. If you have watched some of my vlogs, you may have also seen that I did redo the collar. So the collar of this is done at the end by picking up stitches, and I just found mine to look a little bit wonky. I think I didn't pick up the right amount of stitches everywhere, so I redid that, and now I just think it's perfect. Now we're moving on to my last Petite Knit piece, and this is what I finished most recently in my latest vlog. This is of course the Louvre Sweater. A gorgeous, simple, seamless, completely seamless raglan jumper. It's very oversized and baggy. It has about 20 centimeters of positive ease, and I was whinging about it in my last episode because I was worried that there wasn't enough ease down here, but now I've worn it a few times, it definitely is kind of softening up, and the fit is really, yeah, it's good. I'm happy with it now. The Louvre Sweater is another one of those Petite Knit patterns that is great for sort of beginner to intermediate knitters. There is no annoying sort of picking up stitches or double knit anything. It's all very, very simple, stockinette body and beautiful raglan increases. And the thing that really stands out to me about the Louvre Sweater is just how impeccable the finish is on the top of this piece. The ribbing is very elegant and it makes your neck feel sort of very long and feminine, and then the raglans are just so perfect and neat. I really, really love this one, and I have a feeling that it is a jumper that has been sort of redesigned very subtly a few times. I believe the first time I saw the Louvre Sweater, it did look quite different, but she does update some of her patterns, and I think this is probably one of the ones that has gone through a few updates which were for the better. I like also the fact that there's no mohair on this. As I talked about in my last video, it makes it one that I know will be really, really wearable for me, especially when it gets a bit warmer. I won't talk too much about the Louvre Sweater because I have just finished it, but yeah, another really great sort of seamless pattern. I really love how this, the no frills and the Novice Sweater feel as a knitting experience. They're just a joy to make because there are no techniques that are challenging. It is just plain sailing, and you end up with garments that look completely smooth and just perfect all over. No bumps, no lumps, just, yeah, really, really great seamless patterns. Alright, that brings us to the end of my roundup of the garments that I have with me here. I will also mention that I have made her Stockholm slipover. I don't have that with me because it's back in storage in England, and that one, it's alright. It's not one of my favourite items that I've ever made because I did make it very early in my kind of knitting journey, and it does involve picking up stitches, and I didn't do a great job on that. It is also a piece that doesn't have much positive ease between the bust and the hips, so the fit is not completely sort of spot on. So yeah, The Stockholm Slipover, I've made it, but it wasn't my favourite. And for my dad, I made the Handsholm sweater for his birthday several years ago. That one I do recommend for a simple men's jumper. It's a really easy to follow sort of classic pattern, and the fit on him is very, very good. I used one of his jumpers as a reference point, or my mum sneakily measured it for me so I could get his measurements. And yeah, that one looks very good on him. And although he has extremely long arms, the fit is solid. But now we're coming to the moment that you have all been waiting for, and I am going to try and do a very rough sort of ranking, which might not be that easy because a lot of these are kind of tied. But yeah, so in last place, I would have to put the Novice Cardigan. Just because of the issues that I've mentioned, I don't completely love the button band and how kind of sloppy it looks. And I don't think that my yarn choice was very good for this kind of yoked increase situation. So yeah, this one unfortunately in last place. It's not my favourite, and I think that there are much better cardigan patterns from Petite Knit. Next up, I will have to go for the Sophie Scarf. Yes, it's iconic, but it's also a tiny bit boring. The Sophie shawl is better, and the Sophie scarf I just think is a bit too overhyped. Now it's going to be pretty difficult because everything else is something that I really do genuinely love. But next up, I might have to put the Novice Sweater. Even though it's in this lovely berry shade, again, I'm not sure that I completely love this kind of yoked sort of increase situation because I do feel that it looks a little bit more sheer at the top than it does at the bottom, and even thick mohair can't kind of cover that up. After that, I will go for the Teddy Clutch. I sang its praises, but it does require a few kind of notions that are maybe a little bit hard to find or kind of expensive. The bracket that I got is Petite Knit's own bracket that she sells on her website, and that did cost me quite a bit. And when you add in the sort of finishing fabric inside, it adds up. That one would be next in the ranking. After that, I am going to go for my Cumulus Blouse. This one is largely my fault really that it's quite low in the ranking, but I don't think that the fit of this is very forgiving. I definitely think that you need to size up 1 or 2 sizes to actually make it fit both your bust and your hips, because under 10 centimeters of positive ease is not going to be enough if you are sort of remotely similar to me in shape. But after that, I would say maybe the Friday tee. It's a really neat and cute construction. I love how stretchy the rib is, but it's just not the most practical of her patterns. I still love it, and I still wear it lots in spring, but I can't wear it all the way throughout the whole year. Now we're going into some of my favourites, and I am going to put in the top 3 the Lulu Slipover. Yeah, kind of a surprise to put a slipover in the top 3, but this is such a cute little slipover. I love the mock neck, I love the button band and the side split for the hips. Just a very, very cute slipover. It looks really very chic and cool on, can be matched with a lot of different shirts underneath for all sorts of weathers, and the pattern is simple and easy to follow, even if that ribbing is a bit of a time and sort of hassle investment. Now in spot number 2, we are going to go for the Moby Sweater. Yes, my beloved Moby Sweater didn't make it to number 1, and I think that that's just because of the short length and the slightly boxy fit. This is a beautiful cabled jumper, but it isn't kind of the most elegant knitted piece that I've ever made. And in terms of pairing hand knit garments with a lot of the other stuff I have in my wardrobe, I couldn't give this the top spot. Okay, drum roll please. That does mean, if you've calculated it, that my most recent jumper is in spot number 1. Can you believe it? The Louvre Sweater is my all-time favourite Petite Knit pattern. I'm quite surprised that I'm saying it because I have just finished it, but I've already worn it loads and loads and loads, and I just love almost everything about it. I was worried about the fit at the hips, but now that it's sort of become more soft and I've worn it a bit, I just know that this is going to be with me for years, and I want it in every single colour. And that rounds up my Petite Knit ranking. Thank you so much for watching this video and following along with all of my knits. I hope you enjoyed a slightly different format today and that you found this informative or fun. I would love to know who you think I should do next. I haven't knit as many patterns by any other single designer, but you never know, in the next few years, maybe a My Favourite Things one could be good, especially because I love her summer stuff. But yeah, we will have to see. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again very soon in my next video. Happy knitting! Bye!